Hi, I'm Kaylee. I'm Kaylee.
Try again.
Aw, I don't like this.
It's okay. No, I did a lot of takes when I was filming.
Hey YouTube, the first video on our channel will be how good can someone get in 1 year of training for triathlon. So in today's video, we'll go through our athletic background because it's highly personal to you, your background, your level of fitness, and your commitment to the sport. In the swim, bike, and the run, we'll go through our initial results from our first triathlon 1 year ago, and then we'll take a look at 1 year later's results. Was it worth it? What were some of the wins, the things that we did right along the way, and then maybe what are some of the things that I wish I knew going into a commitment like the sport of triathlon. So let's dive in. So before COVID started, really my background was only lifting and working. And once the gym shut down because of COVID, my girlfriend was an avid runner and I decided to get into that with her. So one thing led to a next, and after a year of running very poorly, we said, okay, well, do we want to take this to another level? And we decided to add 2 more sports into it. So I'm 28 years old now. I got into triathlon at 27. So I've been doing it for a year. My girlfriend's been doing it for a year. We are 2 pretty good case studies of understanding the progress that you can make with deliberate and daily hard work, and also understanding maybe the progress that's impossible to make in just 1 year's time. So hopefully we can uncover and unpack some of that today in our video.
From the office when he runs
Why?
next to the car.
I'm in a 5-hour brick.
When he runs.
I just got off a 4.5-hour bike ride. And I'm still beating you.
Where are we going?
This way.
All right.
Don't run me over.
All right.
From a swim perspective, the first time Kaylee saw me swim, she thought I was joking in the pool. I couldn't even swim a lap, and I tried really hard. My head was out of the water, was flailing all of my limbs. My feet were moving me backwards, not forwards, and I had a whole host of issues. So from an adult learner's swim perspective, I started about as weak as you possibly could. Really, our swim baseline, you could say a 0 out of 10 and maybe a 1.5 to a 2 out of 10 in terms of where we started in the swim. Neither of us had bikes, so we didn't even really get bikes in our training regimen until maybe 3 weeks out from our first triathlon, 3 to 4 weeks out. And funny enough, on Strava, we had the achievement for this was your longest ride in our first triathlon. So our first triathlon was an Olympic distance, and our longest bike ride before that wasn't even 23 miles. So our bike experience was low. We went in without any sort of the gear, like power meters, any sort of data. When we did some testing, I would say, yeah, my FTP wasn't much more than 180 watts to start, which is absolutely terrible for someone my size. And Kaylee's FTP might have been 130 watts, which again is unremarkable at best. So on the run, I certainly had a leg up compared to the other 2 because, I mean, we're talking about a 0 on the swim and maybe a 2 out of 10 on the bike. So if I was anywhere near those levels, then I probably wouldn't have even survived the triathlon. I thought that I could rely on my run to finish strong. So let's go side by side. Let's take a look at my first ever triathlon result, and then 1 year later, how much I was able to improve with a lot of hard work. The first triathlon, my gun time, my overall time was a 3:01:16. So that means it took me 3 hours and 1 minute to complete an Olympic distance triathlon. The bike's a little short with around 23.5 miles. Everything else is right. So out of males, I was 62 out of 95th. For my age group, I was 8th out of 12th, really the bottom of the pack there. And to start off, the swim course was a 2-loop Aussie exit course. So you'd swim 750 meters, get out, and then swim 750 meters. For reference, I never even swam 750 meters once straight in a pool before racing this. So I put on my wetsuit. It was a cold morning, around 48 degrees, and I went for it. And the best way I could describe it was being in purgatory. It was like that space between life and death where I didn't know if I was going to survive. With the sun rising on the horizon, it was like being blind, not being able to see, people swimming over you and through you. and into you, because if we look at my swim map, it certainly wasn't straight. And the problem was between not being able to see and not really being able to swim, it was a chaotic mess. They started the sprint race during the Olympic race, so the crowd doubled mysteriously halfway through. So I made it through one lap, and I remember shaking my head at the lady, and she was like, "Go, go, go, get back in the water." So I ran across the shore, my head was spinning, the whole world around me was just a mess, and I went for the second lap. So if you don't come from a swim background like me, what's the takeaway? Maybe start with a sprint distance, or make sure that you really put in some time to learn how to swim before going for the Olympic distance, because that was one of the rougher experiences to come back to in my life. Transition wasn't great. It was a big steep hill out of sand. My head was spinning. I was peeling off my wetsuit. Steam was coming out of it. And my T1 time was a 5:11. It would also help if you knew my swim time was over 40 minutes, 40 minutes and 2 seconds. So with my head spinning, dizzy, I knew Kaylee beat me on it. I just wanted to get out on the bike and hopefully catch her. Well, that didn't come true. My bike time on a very hilly course without a power meter was an hour and 29. I believe Strava thought my average power was 129 watts. That's what they estimated for me. What I can tell you is that I went out very hard. I didn't have a power meter. I didn't really understand power. So essentially, it would be like if you had to run 5 miles, you ran the first mile as hard as you possibly could without any sort of pacing. The reason I didn't realize it on the bike is because most of it was uphill climbing. So I thought I was just working hard up the hills, but that wasn't really the case. I started off in a lot of pain, pretty strong, and like I said, it was my longest ever bike to that point. Just like the swim was my longest swim, it was my longest ever bike in my life. Strava gave me that award for being 23.5 miles. Congratulations, this is your longest bike. 16.8 miles an hour. Really unimpressive. So far, what a rough start to triathlon. T2, 59 seconds, the silver lining, the only good time of the day for me. And I was so cold, numb from the bike. Like I said, it was too cold out, and I was in a sleeveless, tiny little wetsuit, race suit, excuse me. So the thing I trained the most for, I was putting in 40 to 50 miles per week on the run, I couldn't even do. My feet were pins and needles. I had the bungee shoes. I couldn't feel my feet to even put them on. My legs were totally cramped up from the bike. And that was, for me personally, due to lack of strength training, and lack of time on the bike, of course, because, once again, that was my longest bike. So while I knew I was capable of running around a 40 flat 10K, on the day, I was able to run a 45:54 10K, which is an average pace of around a 7:24. Uninspiring, pretty weak, and I'll never forget at mile 2, a lady in a Mercedes pulled up to me and asked me if she needed to call medical attention. Because even though I was moving through the course, I couldn't bend my legs. It looked like I was running on literal stilts just to get through the course. So that was my first outing, a 3:01, great picture from it, terrible race experience. As hard as I thought triathlon would be, I can safely say I still underestimated it. So let's fast forward 1 year later and take a look at the 2022 results. So what we have here is consistency, hired a coach, lots of training, and learned from maybe a dozen races in between and made several mistakes along the way. So I went from a 3:01 chip time to a 2:20:36 chip time on the same course. So the Olympic distance took me 2 hours and 20 minutes. I was 11th overall this year, and I was the first in my age group for 25 to 29 males. So on the swim, I've been chronically over swimming. I've wanted to race, it's in me, but I still don't have that capacity to race on the swim. And so I swam a 29:05, same course, down from a 40. And it was a totally different experience, sighting properly, making sure that I swam straight instead of the circles that you saw on the first map. Very calm and relaxed exit. My head wasn't spinning. I had the total conditioning to swim this. Got back in the water. Interestingly enough, for some reason, people were on my feet. Probably a mistake on their part. I was too slow to catch the front pack's feet, but people were swimming on my feet. Maybe they were a little sad when they looked at their time, but whatever the case, they had a free draft. So T1 went down from 5 minutes up that big hill to 2:17. Pretty respectable. Not the fastest, but it was up there. And then out on the bike, I cut it down from I think we said it was an hour 29 to an hour and 10. So from a time perspective, that was, I think, the most sizable improvement. The swim was actually pretty close. That's scary. But I went from what Strava said, 129 watts, to around, I think the normalized power was 212 watts for an average speed of around 20.6, 20.7 miles per hour on the course. One of the things I struggle with is putting together my best bike numbers after a swim, but that was more in the range than it has been in the past. So I was like, I'll take it. I overbiked a little, trying to catch some of the front people. They put in more time to me. I knew some of the people would be faster on the bike and that I would have to work to catch them on the run. So my T2 time was 42 seconds, much faster than the previous year. I think this was the second fastest T2 time on the course of the day. Could be wrong on that. And I put together a 38:26 10K run in really negative split, where my first split was as slow as a 6:42 climb uphill. Legs were cramped, everything was tired from the bike, and had the strength to recover, come around, and my last mile split on the run was a 5:51 per mile. So had a strong run. I was still absolutely smashed on the day, but I was able to get everything out of myself that I knew that I had for that type of performance. So that was the 2022 result for a total time off of 41 minutes in a year's hard work. Very similar conditions, same course, so it's a really good side-by-side comparison.
I'm still beating you.
Where are we going?
I'm Kaylee.
And I'm Brian. Thanks for checking out our very first video. We hope you join us along for the journey.
And don't forget to subscribe.